Okay. Hi, Fred. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate being here, and I want to thank you, Mr. Coleman, for the invitation and willing to listen to me drone on. I mean, the fastest way to clear a room is to say, here, we're going to talk about insurance. Wow.
Well, I was just going to say that. I said the topic of today is going to be insurance, which is not the most interesting topic for a lot of people, but it's certainly an important topic. Specifically, what kind of insurance are we going to be talking about? All of it?
No, 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 no. The I recently published a book, as you're aware, called "Claims Made Insurance: The Policy That Changed the Industry," and that's a type of policy that is normally used for commercial purposes, commercial businesses, et cetera, and especially for those people who are providing a professional service to others for a fee. And it's not limited to accountants and architects and lawyers, insurance brokers, real estate brokers, what have you. Anybody who provides any kind of consulting service, or even for you, Mr. Coleman. I mean, you're a broadcaster. You need to buy media liability insurance to protect you from libel and slander and copyright problems. Those policies are written on what's called a claims-made basis. And it's a huge industry. Millions of policies are sold to professionals and directors and officers and corporate clients as well, also written on a claims-made basis. They're about as dangerous a policy form as exists because, number one, there's no standardization as to what is considered a, quote, claim, close quote. What's the definition of that? There's probably 25 or more definitions of the word claim in these policies. And they get even trickier and more complicated after that. And I'm all about financial protection. I've been in the insurance industry now for 50 years, and I've been in the professional liability industry for 50 years as well. I mean, that's been my focus. And like I said, there's all kinds of professionals, safety engineers, people that management consultants, people that consult on consultants on human resource procedures and what have you. Those are all types of people that are providing a service to others. They charge a fee for their services, and they're often required to have insurance, and that insurance is written on what's called a claims-made basis. And you'd be surprised how many claims are successfully denied by insurance companies because nobody took the time to read a policy and what they need to know and what is a claim, when to report it, et cetera. And of course, my biggest concern as well are the insurance brokers out there. 37 states, including California and Nevada, by the way, follow what's called the order taker standard of care, which means that an insurance producer has no obligation to give you any advice. Their job is to dutifully obtain the coverage you ask them for, and they don't have to give you any advice. And that's called the order taker standard of care, which in reality means that they have no more obligation to help you than your server at Denny's. And yet they have all this knowledge. They had to take courses to even apply for a license. They have to take continuing education classes. They're routinely selling policies and coverage and not taking the time to, help policyholders understand what they need to know. And it's pretty ridiculous. And as a result, people find themselves often underinsured. And worse, the insurance industry itself has done a very good job of providing out this propaganda that you're supposed to buy insurance on price, which is wrong. You buy insurance for coverage. You don't know whether you've got a good policy of insurance or not until you submit a claim. And that's not when you want a surprise.
Well, that's true.
And there's a reason,
Yeah.
and that happens all the time. And it's really unfortunate. But the point is, number one, you're programmed to buy on price. And you see these ads on TV all the time. Oh my God, I just saved $300 moving my insurance to another insurance company, whatever. What they don't tell you is what you gave up in coverage, because no two policies are alike. State agencies that regulate insurance only set what's minimally required. After that, the insurance companies can do whatever they want. Subject to, if they're admitted, they have to, get approval, but still, they can pretty much do whatever they want. And that's why there's no two policies are alike. And you may not know, as I said, all these little nuances For instance, I know everybody's well aware of the California fires, but I would imagine that 50 to 60% of all those policyholders were underinsured because nobody took the time to explain to them. It's one thing to have your fire insurance, but how about your extra living expense? Who's going to pay, you, or how much are they going to pay you while you're living somewhere else temporarily while you're rebuilding your home? And that can be based on what's called actual loss sustained, which has no time limits nor any limit. Or it could be for 1 year, it could be for 2 years, and it may also have a cap on how much they're willing to pay. You don't know. Nobody explains that stuff to you. Or, a code and ordinance coverage, how much of rebuilding your home, how much of that cost is because you've had to upgrade to current building codes. That's a different limit on most fire policies. Nobody tells you that stuff. And you're supposed to figure that on your own? I mean, that's ridiculous. I'd always look for an insurance agent that's willing to give you advice. And there is ways in which the consumer can actually force that to happen. And that is to send an email or a letter to your insurance broker that you're willing to talk with, and you tell them the expectations. You want to learn more about what you're buying and how to make sure that you're properly covered. You want that advice. And in some states, like New Jersey and Florida, they actually hold insurance brokers to the highest standard of care. It's called a fiduciary standard. But not in California, not in Nevada, not in total of 37 states. And that's ridiculous.
Oh, it's interesting. So your book, Claims Made Insurance, the Policy That Changed the Industry, is that what this covers? This
book covers, helps professionals who are consumers understand the type of policy they're buying. And that's critically important. Before the book was done and published in this past June, a year earlier, the International Risk Management Institute published an article I wrote looking at over 200 claim denials that I totally agreed with. The denials were correct, but they were all avoidable. And the biggest percentage of people who had their coverage denied because they didn't report a claim timely, or they didn't disclose it on an application, or they didn't use what's called the safety net, that if you're aware you made a mistake and you might be sued, you can report that right now to your current insurance company, and they may have to cover you even if it's after the policy expires. But the biggest percentage of policyholders that had their claims denied were, believe it or not, lawyers. 28%. And then when you add to that directors and officers, if you're a director and officer of a corporation and you get sued by a third party or a stockholder or something, what do? They immediately forward that lawsuit to their corporate counsel, who has no obligation to ask you if you have insurance. And as a result, a lot of director and officer liability claims were also denied for late notice, not telling the insurance company about the claim. There's no excuse for that. So when you figure that directors and officers have the second highest frequency, it's because they send everything to lawyers first. And the lawyers have no obligation to say, are you covered? Do you have policy insurance for this? And it's all of these denials were preventable. And I'm all about seeing that my policyholders and my customers and clients were properly covered. I've been selling claims-made policies for 50 years. I know the dangers inside and out, and I made sure my policyholders knew. I didn't follow the order taker standard. I made sure that my customers knew what they were buying and made informed decisions. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't mind selling people garbage, and I have, but only when I've told them why it's garbage and I've offered them something better. This book was written for the consumer, not just people in the industry, which means lawyers need to read it, architects need to read it, accountants need to read it, real estate brokers, insurance brokers, anybody providing a service to another for a fee. You should read this book because they'll tell you what you need to know, and it's done in plain language. It's not technical. And you'll see that from the reviews that are on Amazon. I think there's 15 or more 5-star reviews.
Okay. How deep do you go into health insurance? Because I think that's something that most people can relate to over some of the more obscure insurances that we've been talking about.
Well, again, you want to deal with a knowledgeable insurance agent or broker. Most independent insurance agencies do sell health insurance. And again, you want to buy coverage, especially with health insurance, and you want to buy from legitimate carriers. I personally am very negative about HMO types of programs, although there are some good ones. I know I won't mention any names, but for the most part, I prefer real coverage. I would rather have a regular policy and from a knowledgeable broker as opposed to going into an HMO situation. I think HMOs are more profit oriented than anybody. Not to say that the other standard insurance policies aren't, but I think you're going to have broader coverage and better coverage by going to a knowledgeable broker and getting a good non-HMO oriented policy.
Okay, well, a lot of people get their coverage through their employer in the United States. And then if you're over 65, you get Medicare.
Your employer coverage is usually, group policies are usually broader and cover prior existing conditions. And that is something I would highly encourage you to do, is get your coverage through your employer and get a PPO plan. Because often employers offer both. They offer an HMO option or a PPO. And I would do the preferred provider plan. That way you get to pick your own doctor. And I think it's broader coverage and better. When you get into Medicare, again, I favor PPO type of programs, not Medicare Advantage plans. I don't like them. I think you're better off with either, I guess now it would be called a Plan G. Now that means you're still going to have to buy the drug coverage and what have you. But don't be fooled by some of these Medicare Advantage plans, because that takes you out of the Medicare system. And it's hard to get back into it. It's a replacement for Medicare, and it's authorized by law. But you can use that instead of going into the actual pure Medicare program, where you buy a supplemental coverage. Plan G is the way to go, as far as I'm concerned. But make your own decision. Talk to a knowledgeable broker. But I do not like Medicare Advantage plans because they're an HMO model.
I didn't know you could opt out of Medicare.
It's not opting out. It's just that this is an option to going into the full Medicare system. Medicare allows you to get a Medicare Advantage plan, but it's technically outside of Medicare. And getting back into a Medicare plan, like a Plan G, once you've gone into a Medicare Advantage plan, is not easy to do. But there again, deal with a knowledgeable insurance agent who's willing to spend time and explain to you the differences.
Yeah,
or you can do your own research on the differences as well, but there's plenty of good advice out there.
Well, I'm coming up on it shortly, so I have been I've been looking at it. As a matter of fact, 2 years I'm going to be having to start on Medicare. So
welcome to the club.
Yeah.
I love my Medicare plan, but I'm on a PPO plan. I'm on a Plan G. Or I was on a Plan F. And they discontinued F, but I was grandfathered, so I still have it. Plan G is the equivalent of that. And I would highly recommend you look at that and not do a Medicare Advantage plan when the time comes.
Okay, Plan G, you said?
Yeah, Plan G.
Okay, I'll Google search that and see what comes up. Okay, we are just about out of time. So. One quick thing, on the beginning of the email that we received from your publicist, it said insurance isn't toothpaste.
That's because people are being taught to buy on price. Today, insurance is being sold like it's a tangible product, and it's not.
Okay.
When you buy toothpaste, you know what you're getting, and if you don't like it, you can change tomorrow. When you buy an insurance policy, any other policy, you don't know whether it's any good until you submit a claim. And that's not when you want to have a surprise.
Well, Fred, we got to wind this down. Thanks so much for coming on. Your book has been released, you said, correct?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And every once in a while, it actually is back on the #1 list for its class.
Oh, great.
Of course, on that same token, it might be the only book in its class. I don't know.
Last question. Do you have a website you want to give out?
Yes, I do. It's www.fisher, Fisher, CG, which stands for consulting group.com. FisherCG.com.
Okay, we'll put it up on the screen. Thank you again for coming on the show. It was nice chatting with you. Best of luck.
My pleasure. Thank you, Mr. Coleman. I do appreciate it.